And to start out tonight, John Baker, the department chair, is going to give a quick welcome. Woo! Yeah.
Just a really special word of welcome to the folks who are visiting. I'm going to embarrass you just a little bit. Raise your hands. Right? So the rest of you, make sure you're friendly to these people, unlike you normally are. I think that's it. This event will go on for a little while. We'll have sirens a little bit. And
Do you want to explain it for the summer?
we've talked to these guys. They kind of know what it is. Those guys already know what it is. Everybody talks for 60 seconds so they can about their work. And we're not going to yank them after 60 seconds.
Well, this is a show I'm very excited about. We have Rico Gatson and Chris Larson here. Rico is based in New York. Chris is based in St. Paul, Minnesota. And they've been friends for a very long time, since their undergraduate days at Bethel College, Bethel University. And from Bethel, they both went to Yale University for their MFA. So they had a common schooling experience and have been friends since, and have both done really interesting things. Rico shows with Ronald Feldman in New York, a really great gallery. He just had a recent show at Exit Art, kind of a mid-career retrospective.
Survey.
Yeah. He's shown at the Studio Museum in Harlem. He's shown at the New Museum, among many other places. Chris shows a lot in Berlin these days. He showed in South America this past year, as well as in Europe and across the United States. So they both have really extensive exhibition records. Their work is very diverse. They both started in sculpture and still, I think, probably consider themselves sculptors, despite the fact that most of the work here is two-dimensional. So I think that might be something interesting to think about tonight. But the way they'd like to handle this evening, and the reason we're in the gallery, is the idea that this should really be a conversation. And that we talk about the work, that they talk about their work in the context of it. And I'd really encourage you all and invite you all to be bold and free-giving with your questions tonight. I think that's how this evening will go best. But I approached them both last year with this idea that they could do this show together, knowing that they've been friends for a long time. But because of the affinities that's in their work. They both approach narrative kind of through the back door, as I see it, through materiality, through abstraction, and yet there's very strong narrative content in the work. And I was really excited when when I found out that the two of them have been talking about showing together for years and have never done so. So this is the first time they've shown together. This is the first time they've seen their work that they've talked about hours and hours, nights and nights, during their friendship here in the space together. So maybe to start us out talking about it, the two of you could kind of narrate how you came to this show, from this offer to make a show together. What went into creating this exhibition?
Well, first and foremost, move in front of the camera.
We're on TV tonight.
Okay. Perfect. Yeah, first and foremost, I think that I speak, maybe I shouldn't speak for both of us, but want to say that we are delighted to be here at Trinity College, and want to, thank Cherith and the art department for having us, and of course delighted to do this, show, and delighted to see our work together for the first time.
Yeah. And
we're still absorbing and processing that, but I think is so far so good.
Yeah.
So that's a
I
good
want to say thanks to Cherith too, and to John and everybody here. The two guys left that were the tech guys, but been amazing, like totally amazing. Been here all day, trying to tweak stuff and get stuff perfect, and it's been great. So thanks.
And just one other thing, insofar as the dialogue is going to happen between us, but also hopefully we can open it up to you as well. So again, feel free to ask questions at any point and sort of help it along. I think that would be the best way, because sometimes when you make stuff, you get kind of close and it's hard to remember all of the, motivation that went into the making. So sometimes that's helped by questions.
Yep.
That said, we'll have a dialogue, which we've done like a billion times.
Yeah.
Well, not a billion, but a few times over the years.
So maybe just a funny little backstory.
Yeah.
When Cherith said, "Hey, I'm the gallery director at Trinity in Chicago. Do you want to do the show with Rico?" And which Rico and I have been talking about for years about doing something together, because our work kind of bumps against each other over the years. And so I was like, oh, I went to Trinity for my first year of undergrad. It would be great to come back to Trinity. And so for this whole entire year, I've been thinking about coming back because I haven't been back here for 25 years. So I got here and I was like, is this the same? Is this the front entrance? And she goes, yeah, I believe so. And we kept walking around. I was like, wow, this really got built up. Where is the cafeteria? And I was like, this is a brand new cafeteria. And then I realized, well, what town is this? And she said, what is this town?
Palos Heights.
Palos Heights. And I was like, oh, I went to Deerfield. I went to Deerfield. So it was not here. It was in Deerfield, Illinois. But when I was at Deerfield, Illinois, I got a call from a friend in Minneapolis and said, "You got to come to Bethel. There's this amazing art teacher named Stuart Luckman, and it's totally amazing. You should come." And so I was like, all right, so maybe I do this. So the next year, I found myself at Bethel, and Rico was at Northwestern College, which was just down the road from Bethel.
Northwestern
So
Bible
both
College.
of us end up at Bethel at the exact same year under that same professor, which totally changed my life, and I think Rico's life
Well,
too.
the first time I saw Chris, he had longer hair and a skateboard.
Yeah.
And I was like a football player. Hopefully we've yeah, okay. In any event, here we are, all these years later.
Yeah.
And we're going to try to talk about our art.
And friendship.
Oh yeah, that too.
Yeah? All right.
All right.
So you both were at Bethel,
Yep.
and both went to Yale from there, which is just kind of a happenstance, right? And then have both been at differently at different times, pretty involved in New York with things there. How? Talk about your friendship, maybe to start before we talk about the work.
I will say, okay, so Rico went to Yale before me. He was a year ahead of me because I took 5 years, he took 4 years to graduate. And there was somebody before us that went to Yale, and it was that was the goal, to get into Yale sculpture program. So Rico gets in, and I was like, I have to get in there. So the next year I apply, and I get in there. So we overlapped a year. Rico heads to New York. I'm at Yale another year. And the following year, I went to New York just to sort of look at studio spaces with these guys, and it felt overwhelming to me. And I think you made the choice to go to New York. And at the midstream, because even our professor, David von Schlegel, was like, Chris, take this work, go to New York, make a career. And I went there and I was just I didn't think I could do it. I saw these gigantic warehouses filled with artists and I was just and I had left a really vibrant scene back in the Twin Cities.
What year was that?
Okay, this is 92.
Yeah, so the first year
1992.
out of Yale.
So I go back to the Twin Cities because there was a vibrant scene back there that I had left, and I thought, okay, I'm going to try to, this seemed manageable. And I was working large at the time, and I knew I could continue doing these gigantic installations. And so Rico goes to New York, I go to Minneapolis.
Yep. Oh yeah, New York was stressful and big and dirty. And it's still stressful, big, and dirty.
But it had sort of, it had sort of...
But it's a very, but it was
the market had crashed, sort of, no?
Yeah, when I arrived, in the early 90s, there was no art market. There was a recession, I think. And so it was a really fertile time to kind of be there with other young ambitious artists wanting to do stuff. I mean, and there was great opportunity in the moment, though I don't think we realized it until later, to show work, you know, because it was like things were beginning to sort of move from the gallery and into like, you know, sort of like this kind of artist run thing. I mean, that's kind of come around again, like since the economy is, you know, since the economy turned a few years ago. But yeah, so it was like this really sort of interesting place to be insofar as just being able to make work and have a dialogue with other artists and so on. So yeah, quite the different. I mean, it was not that different, but different in some respects.
I mean, you were like my lifeline to New York.
Was I really your lifeline?
I think so. Because I would come out, and what do you do? Is like not knowing many people in the city, and yeah, it was a really important connection back then.
Minnesota is a great place for grants, and that's been really good for you in Minnesota. Rico, how did you make your way forward in New York?
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Explain what a grant is and how you get it,
Exactly.
and why you would go for it.
So Minnesota, I basically lived off of grants and fellowships and things like this for probably 10, 15 years. And totaling probably close to $200,000 in just money from state, private foundations. I mean, it's totally outrageous. And you
give them an example about here's a proposal.
So you submit your work. One is the Bush Foundation. It's a $50,000 grant foundation. You submit your work, 10 images, your resume, and they decide. It's for Minnesota artists only. And so, amazing. And they just cut you a check and say, make work. I mean, it was these kind of things that you become like this. I mean, there's so many artists in the Twin Cities, and there's a lot of money to go around. So I basically lived off these grants and fellowship, but I did miss out on being in New York.
But it allowed you to make big things that were not saleable, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Like you could go to a large space,
Right.
a museum space, and put something in there that you weren't selling them,
Right,
but that was spectacular.
right.
But then how did you do it?
I still don't know. No. I'm joking. No, it was like quite the different experience. I mean, though there are like grants that one can, NIFA in New York State, that one can apply for, and some of these national grants. I just, for me, it was just an entirely different thing, which was about just sort of being immersed in like, the New York art world and trying to like sort of, struggle from the bottom to somewhere, which meant just like, at least for me, like just first and foremost, trying to establish a studio situation, which required to have some sort of a job. So there were like lots of jobs, various jobs, including like working for a few artists, some of them famous, and so yeah. So it was like trying to like balance, but work and art all the time, and it's still true to this day that that's what I'm doing. So I went from like obviously like again working odd jobs and assisting artists to like now I teach. But yeah, I think it was like the benefit I think from being in New York versus Minnesota was just sort of the place and having access, and I eventually like landed my gallery that was mentioned, and
How did that happen?
again just kind of being plugged into like the community, back to the early 90s, the recession, and artist run spaces and galleries looking like outside of like the normal sort of structure to try to I didn't put that right, but like just engaging like the community. Like I was able to show work, and my now director saw my work in an artist run gallery environment, and thus begun a dialogue, about the work that's continued. So, it's really just about really I was, and my friends were focused on just trying to make the work and get it out into the world, and which is the same thing that, but there was just more opportunity in New York, I think, for various reasons, naturally. I mean, there was a sense early on that, with the market being the way it was, and it has been the case since that, trying to crack that nut is, the art world nut, the gallery nut is not so easy. But I think that for me or us then and now, in the last few years, it's been easier because there's just so much activity and so much opportunity to get the work in the world. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It doesn't guarantee that you're going to sell the work or make any money, but at least there's a community and exposure and so on, which I think is always really, really great for young artists. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's the bottom line is insofar as making and showing if that's what you want to do, because clearly not everybody's going to want to engage that, is just making, working, and determining where you want to be. You don't all have to be in New York. New York is overcrowded. I say stay here, generate your own community and opportunity. We have the internet, so it's all decentralized. Go to Zurich. I don't know. I was in Zurich in the early 2000s. They were like, "Why are you in New York? Just move here. You can make work here. You don't have all the distraction of all the dirt." I'm very distracted by the dirt. I've been completely fixated on the dirt.
Well, you guys spent a lot of time talking about what this show should look like and what should go into it. Maybe you could each choose a piece of the others. Chris, choose one of Rico's pieces in the gallery, and maybe, because you kind of chose each other's work for the show.
Yep.
Choose one and tell us why.
All right, so I think the first one that I chose out of Rico's was the one that's the red and the black one, and that's the LA riots. It's Rico had been taking these images from aerial photos, but also not even popular culture, out of what would you say, the imagery lifted from what's the woman with the microphone, the guy with the scars on the back, but it's just it's lifted imagery from historical imagery.
Yeah.
And so some of the conversation we'll be talking on the phone. He's like, "What are you working on? What am I working on?" And there was a time where I was working on this project that was based on this Branch Davidian's Waco compound situation where this cult, if you want to call them, or these people had this compound down in Waco, Texas, and the ATF, the Alcohol, Fire, Tobacco, came in. There was a great fire. Men, women, and children all died. But I was looking at all these images, and there was this one that said, Rodney King, we understand, and it was around the same time as the riots that were going on, and it's so maybe it's these kind of conversations that started to open up, and our work starts to sort of bump against each other.
Well, again, it's a long sort of dialogue that we have here. So we're isolating it to this moment, but there have been several moments over the years.
Yeah.
And our work wasn't always sort of superficially. I think it's beyond that, but connected. So I think that just a long conversation. I like to think of it as just this. What is it? 25 years that we've known each other.
Yeah.
And of course, for the first few years, we were young college students, just trying to wrestle through whatever it is that we were focused on, and and so it's sort of grown, and I think we've begin to sort of realize the connections, as we get a little bit older, You know, we're just a little bit older than you guys, you know, just like about a few years. But nonetheless, so yeah, so that was a moment. Like
that was a
the
moment,
Rodney
but
King,
it's like it's a small
Yeah.
moment in a larger conversation.
Yeah,
I
but
mean, that's-
another connection would be music. I think that music is, you know, you're a musician and I love music, and so like as you'll see in the show that there is, you know, we have, you know, very specific, you know, figures that we've chosen to put into this show, but I think it goes beyond that. But yeah, music is really important, a really important aspect, you know, of or connection, I think, in the work. You know, but like, yeah, okay.
So, but I've loved that piece since I saw it in the studio, and I mean, for obvious reasons of like, I mean, I think I'm interested in things that have like, and I think he does this a lot in his work, where it's like, there's these multiple layers of these like looking through different surfaces, and this is obvious one of like the black around the outside of this sort of grid landscape thing, and then the smoke or the fire going through. And I think that probably attracts me too, because I've got that element in my work too, of these sort of like layers of something going back into the space. And,
Now I have to choose?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I choose everything. Most of the things I saw on the internet, with not having the benefit of having gone to the studio and seen the work. So a lot of this work is new. But like, you know, like, I'll speak to like the correlations, like, you know, and there are clear correlations between like this piece or image, which is really striking to me, and you know, clearly my piece, which is the glitter piece, this piece. I mean, the show's titled Light Matter, and we, you know, that's kind of a riff on a title, sort of a show that I did entitled Dark Matter, and, you know, but as we thought about the show, we thought about you know, I think about like, you know, the sort of illumination or these, you know, like this, well, the light or color coming out of like darkness, you know, or blackness, you know, but so in a very awkward way, I'm trying to say that like that image, you know, is a really powerful image, you know, because of like the way that it does what I just described, you know, and the simplicity of it, you know, it's just a, you know, it's simple yet complex, you know. I mean, it's obviously clearly defining like space, you know. It's more interior, you know. Whereas I think that I'm thinking about something more sort of, you know, less interior, more like, you know, space. You know, obviously the glitter is, you know, stand-in for like, you know, space, galaxy, or like, you know, Cherith raised the point about like, you know, like what? How'd you put it? City,
It's
or
like
like
city streets, city lights,
Yeah.
nighttime in the city.
yeah, like or like cityscape, you know. So yeah. So, but I don't see it as like some like, you know, really insipid like, you know, connection. I think that, you know, as we talk about this stuff, you know, certainly things are broader, you know, like as you make work and you try to like determine what it is that you hope to say, you know, and bring all the sort of influences and, you know, concerns into the work, you know, hopefully they become embedded and go beyond like anything that you can sort of verbalize, you know, or put into a nutshell. I mean, that's what I hope for. I mean, like seeing work over like several years, like that piece, you know, I've known that work, and it, you know, it continues to like unfold in like these really sort of profound ways for me, you know, that I can't like really put into words, but, you know, again, it's really simple, but, you know, there's a lot there. I think you talked about narrative or something earlier.
Yeah.
But-
I mean, I think what's interesting to me about both of their work, both of your work, is initially it seems fast, but it's very slow work. That and maybe there's a sense of design, you know, or this very graphic sense, at least for the work in the gallery here. You know, not all your work, but there's you grasp it graphically right away, and yet as you're looking at it, content unfolds. And over here, you know, you have to figure out what it is that you're looking at. And your eyes kind of start to trick you. And I was telling Rico that the glitter does the same thing to me as this photograph does, you know, the scanned piece of plywood that's been shot at. They're insistently there, and my eyes have a hard time grasping it.
Yeah.
And that play that happens is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier to ship flat work, so that a lot of this is two-dimensional, might make a lot of sense. But why is most of this two-dimensional, do you think?
It's easier to sell. No, I'm joking.
Because you do both. And
That was just a joke.
not entirely.
Not entirely. I spoke for you. I should What's the question again? Why do we do two?
You both come from sculpture backgrounds,
Yeah.
and you both work. I mean, we've got painting, even though you might not want to call it painting, photography, sculpture, video in the show. Why, when you chose, was it for ease that most of this is two-dimensional? Is most of the work you're doing now two-dimensional? What?
I've always just like worked across. I mean, well, not always, but for a while, I've just like worked across media. You know, I mean, I could like blame it on like a really short attention span. It's probably not that, but I just like, you know, like I just sort of feel that like at least for me that I can't say all the things I want to say and like just, you know, working in a specific way, like it has to be. And I like work. I paint. I'm working on sculpture. I'm working on video. I make works on paper. Those aren't represented in the show. You know, so it's just like a way to just sort of keep my mind and practice very active. You know, and yeah, just can't be expressed in one way, you know. But like, yeah, so far as like why are things flat, you know? I mean, you know, like I think that like at some point as a teacher, I was like working a lot with painters, and you know, I think that crept in, you know, and I tried to resist it for a while, but you know, but yeah, I just kind of at some point decided just to go with it, you know. And I think sculptors always want to be like, you know, the grass is always greener. You know, sculptors want to be painters, painters want to be sculptors. Sometimes we make the switch, the swap, you know, and it works, you know. I mean, I think in our case, it's just a matter of just wanting to, you know, I mean, I'm speaking for you now because of our conversations, but I think it's just a matter of like staying engaged and really needing to work across media and, you know, have as many experiences as one can, you know. I think Kiki Smith, the sculptor, mixed media artist, once said something to the effect. She just wants to have as many experiences and material as possible. So, you know, but my dealer, my director says that like I'm like the most consistent artist she knows. You know, even though I think that what she means, because I'm never quite sure what she means, is that you know, she means is just that like the ideas are the same. They've always been the same. Like I chart them back to like when I was like your age, you know, working at Bethel. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we were speaking earlier about our professor, sculpture professor, and like the kind of license that like we felt, you know, insofar as like being able to take on the things that, you know, one may not be that like comfortable with like taking on. For me, it was like, you know, identity, you know, or, you know, I mean, I think that I first got the license to sort of do that there, you know. Sounds like a really simple thing, but you know, I like to tell my students whatever it takes to sort of get you where you're going to go, whatever it takes to such that you're going to be engaged and want to work through or for it, you know, is the key. You know, so that can be anything, literally anything. Sounds basic, you know. Just be engaged. Get excited, you know. It's like, you know, if you like, you want to make work about Furbies. Who's to say that you can't make? Actually, I had a student make work about Furbies last year, and it was good work too. It was like I was, you know, I'm always.
Speaking of work, can you talk about your
Yes.
schedule in the studio? Like, what's your typical week, or when you think about it?
For me, it's like every day. You know, even when like I teach and I'm a husband and a father, and you know, I try to go to the studio every day, even if I'm not doing anything, even if I'm staring at the wall. A lot of times I am. I'm just staring at the wall.
7 days a week,
Well,
8 days a week.
if I could do 7 days, I would do 7 days. But family doesn't always allow 7 days. So, but there's a lot of stuff to juggle. But 6 days, 7 days, 10 days. But yeah, all the time.
What do you teach? Sorry.
What's that?
What do you teach?
What?
What do you teach? Yeah, like
Sculpture.
what,
Foundation. I teach, I have 2 jobs. He's managed to have 1 job now. I teach at NYU and I teach at Sarah Lawrence College. So I teach like advanced, well, all levels, advanced, beginning to advanced and sometimes video, and I've taught drawing and, but right now sculpture, foundation and advanced, intermediate to advanced. Yeah. What do you teach?
I'm at the University of Minnesota. I teach sculpture and work with the grad students. And it's a research university, so I teach 2 days a week, which is amazing. I'm there from 9 o'clock in the morning till 4:30, and then they expect you to have a research. Like if you're a scientist, you'd be doing experiments. If you're an artist, you go and work in your studio. And so I'm either there during the day or night. I'm also married. I have 2 kids. But I'm there every day. I like to drop in, even if it's just like on a Saturday or Sunday or a night. Even if it's just for a couple hours, to sort of check in, and because you sort of get, if you get too much distance from that space, you start to lose that relationship between that space and the work. So,
Absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit more? I'm very interested and intrigued about the dialogue between you two and how it has affected your work. You've kind of alluded to how kind of work comes about, but can you just dialogue about that a little bit? Obviously the friendship influences your work, but as you describe these 2 pieces, it almost sounds as though when one of you was working on a piece about Rodney King, you were working on a piece about the Waco, and so you're both dealing with the explosion, so it's very intriguing and how you keep that going and how that works for both of you.
I would say a huge part of it for me is a support person on that other end of the phone, or when I go to New York or he comes to Minneapolis, and it's like, this is what happens. It's like it's the couple hours of this, and at the end it's like, stay the course, where it's like, we're both in it for the long haul. We're not in it because you talk about the young art stars and all this stuff, and like the people's careers that are going here and going there, and Rico always said, it's like, oh, that guy was big 2 years ago. And we never wanted to be those people that were big 2 years ago. It was like a long conversation with our work for a long time, till we're old, right? And I think that's what it's like. It's, back and forth, and it's like, stay the course, stay in there. Trust your process, trust what you're doing, and believe in it. And that's been huge, where you feel like sometimes you're just like dinking around in the studio and like, what are you doing this for? And it's like, it's those moments on the phone where it's just like, okay, I'm not insane. It's like, this is totally, it's worth it.
I feel that to the heart.
Yeah? Okay.
No, it's like, it sounds like, it's just that, it's just been a very fluid sort of process, and, like you don't set out to do whatever, you just like happen there sometimes, and that's what it's been about. It's just like, there's not, I don't think that, there's no like kind of nutshell way to sort of like contain it. I've just, I felt fortunate, this is going to sound really sappy, but I felt fortunate over the years to sort of have that connection, especially because like life, because let's face it, like there's life and there's art, if you decide to do it beyond a certain point, and it's like negotiating that, because as mentioned, we both have families, kids, and we're trying to like do the work. So, you know, and a lot of times, you know, it was just really about like trying to, a discussion about just negotiating life, you know, as much as art. So it wasn't always like art, you know. Many of the conversations were about that, you know, but I think that ultimately it's like, you know, just sort of, you know, a commitment to like a dialogue, a commitment to like, you know, moving, like, you know, going to the studio every day, you know. It's like you know, there'd be several people in your lives that over the years, you know, you might remain friends with, and some you might not, you know. But I think that the ones that you do, it'll be about a commitment. So it's not just art; it's like life, you know. And this has really been about life, you know. As strange as that sounds, you know. And that's the power of it. Like to me, that's the beauty of the show. Like I don't expect you guys to walk in cold, especially some of you prospective students, to come in and be like, "I think this is the greatest show I've ever seen." You know? Mm-hmm. But you know, for us, like, you know, we're really having a moment. I'm having a moment. I'm going like, "Whoa, this kind of works," you know. Yeah. And it's just surprising that this is the first time that we're actually putting this stuff together. You know, in some cases, like, you know, we're actually like making the decision to like combine things, but that came out of like, wow, you know, those two things work together. You know, so you know, up until this point, it's been all theory. You know, we literally put the show together mostly like through like corresponding via email. You know, like sharing pictures. You know, like I said, I didn't see some of the new stuff, but you know, also like you've been in my studio, so you could see that piece, and like you know, and that piece. You know, so you know, but yeah, I guess the long route to your answer is just life. Friendship.
I would say there's a professional level to it too. It took me about 9 years to get to New York, meaning the first time I had showed there. And after I got hooked up with that sort of like group of people there, it started, what happens is you start to meet other people within your gallery that you're showing with, and then you start meeting different curators that are interested in your work, and then they start getting interested in his work or vice versa. And the friendships start to expand, and then the opportunities expand. The more, you know, where it's like a natural progression of like, you know, oh, you know him, you know him, you know him, or her, right?
Yeah, and that of course grows and expands over the years too. You said professional. You said professional.
Profession?
Yeah.
Professional. I said like, yeah.
I
mean, beyond the friendship, like what happens, like, right?
No, it is totally, there's a professional part of it.
Yeah.
Maybe we could take it back to the studio. And Chris, I think your work, in a certain body of work, there's a core to it, whether it's a large sculptural core or a video core, and a lot of other things spin out of it.
Mm-hmm. And
maybe some of the works here are kind of some of that. Can you talk about how what spinning means, or what shooting something means, or how it moves from one medium to the next, or why it needs to? Why does it need to be here and there, or what? I don't know. Can you pick up on that in some way?
Sure. I don't. Maybe this is different about you and I, or maybe it's not so different. But it's like I do these. I think if you knew my work and you walked in here, you wouldn't go, "Oh, this is Chris Larson." But I think after seeing your Exit Art show, it's like this is really at the core of your practice. Yeah.
Well,
a lot of these things,
this
like
stuff,
this and this.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think this, it's like I do these. I think I also can't sit still, and I do these maybe larger projects. Like this one, it's the shotgun blast to this, and it comes out of a larger project of this film called Shotgun, or I forget. But it's a shotgun. I built like an entire shotgun
Is that the
house.
video in the show?
Right.
Oh, but you,
Well,
but
that's
no, but yeah, go back. Sorry.
But it's an extra. So it's all these like, while I'm working on the big project, I do all these, like these things come off to the side of these, like the legs of the thing that carries the larger piece. And so I think that's what I think was really intrigued to try this show with Rico, where it's like, this is pretty different than what I would normally do as a exhibition, right? There are, a lot of it is flatter work, but it's like, it's these things that come off of the larger, because that one's a direct relationship to a video called Heavy Rotation, right? That one is a direct relationship to a performance, to two film projects. The one back there, the Vortex, is sort of a newer video project that I'm working on. So it's just like little roads that go off.
So these littler things, it's like you're spinning off of them aesthetically, like something about that rotation. Just you need to do more rotations, obviously.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
a need to do rotations, apparently, right? In the work
Yeah, yeah.
that needs to keep going. Or there's this need to keep shooting.
Yeah.
And it seems both a visual question to me and a content question. Is it both, or can you talk about that in any way? How the spin-offs?
I don't mean to lessen it like these are lesser works or these are smaller works. It's just like it happens while, okay, it's connected to a larger body of work is what it is, right? And maybe you would understand the narrative or the context more if I think it helps to have the shotgun landscape video with that, but I also think, it's been shown just like this too. So.
Well, certain things like exist as like kind of the residue of like larger projects, I mean, not to again reduce it. I mean, like that, like not that, or not this series of works. There seem to be like more, some things like are like sort of like, experiments, like serious experiments in material that may or may not go somewhere. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you could do like 20 and decide or determine that you're not. I mean, that's how it works for me. I like, like the painting that Chris pointed out is a part of a series of paintings that, started out as a small group. There's like 5 so far, and I plan to make more because now I've determined that I can include them in a show that I'm doing at my gallery in April. And it fits conceptually with like, the larger thing, but sometimes like things just sort of like these panels. I've done a series of these panels, these smaller paintings, if you will, and like probably like there's like 13 of these. Some have words, some are just abstract with color, and I'm not sure that I'm going to spend a lot of time, working on these, So like you cycle through things, and some things sort of stay, and grow and get bigger, And some things are just bigger, like I said, and then sort of, there's stuff that comes out of like the larger thing, So yeah, I mean, it's like looking at like the total package, if you will, and sort of, which I think is necessary. This is like you're getting like, snippets of, lots of work. Like we're both, well, I'll speak for you. He's very prolific, and so he's done a lot of stuff, and certainly, this doesn't represent all of that, but just little moments, good moments, I think, really good moments. But
Rico, how did these panel pieces start? Like, do you know which ones are going to have? I mean, you start with obviously the text parts and some of them. Do you know something that's going to happen on top of them, or do you just start with text not knowing? Really
well, again, it's always like an outgrowth. Like I've been like sort of working like that size for me, like is a way of working. The 24 by 24 was just like it's just always made sense. So, but like, again, it's like an outgrowth. It's like a project or series of paintings that came prior, In the case of these pieces that like have like the glitter, like either sort of as, what it is or muted or covered. Like I think that there was a lot of work in like, what was that biennial, 2000 and there's a lot of work floating around with glitter for a while, and I was really like impacted by glitter. I was like, I got to use this large flake black glitter, you know what I mean? And again, it had something to do with like thinking about like the sky, the cosmos, or something, trying to represent that like in this really lo-fi material. So like I just went, nuts with a lot of glitter paintings, and then like I was like, I got to stop I don't want to use the glitter, like just straight up, because it's too problematic for whatever reason, or I was self-conscious, and I started like just painting over it. I was like, okay, I'll just mute the glitter. And then it became like this texture, you know what I mean? And then like, you know, at some point realized, through happenstance, that like it looks like the texture of like the hair. Like, so there's like all of this stuff working on a like semi-subconscious level, you know? So like you know, I don't think that it matters like, you know, how you're like sourcing like the stuff, you know? So long as it gets in there, you know? And you don't always have to have like a point-by-point list as to why it works. I think you just gotta like get in there and battle it out and wrestle with it and hopefully get somewhere, you know? And then ultimately let somebody else tell you why it's great, you know? Because I don't know. I'm like,
But you do, I mean, you do a lot of careful taping off.
yeah, I'm in
I
there.
mean,
I'm really obsessive and anal.
Yeah.
Trust me. Like I once had a talk where I said I love stripes, and I used to be embarrassed by that, but now I just like embrace it. That's just me. People say, why do you have so many stripes? Why do you like making stripes? There's a quote. Like, I said that in a talk, and then somebody was there from a little newspaper, and they wrote that, and I was like, I was mortified the next day. Like now, it's being recorded. I don't like stripes. For the record. Yeah, but you know, you just like, I like to say you just do it, and you know, hopefully it, you know, goes somewhere, and you know, just do it seriously, and you know, embrace the stuff that you care about, or that interests you. You know, you're gonna process through that, move on to other things, and you know, it's all hopefully this fluid thing. You know, that's the best thing I can tell you. You know, doesn't mean you're not gonna have to do the work, but make the work, make stuff. Yes, sir.
I'm looking at this kind of geometric progression
Yeah.
in the stripe piece you were talking. It just got me thinking about the relationship between music and art. And you're living in New York City. There's more than just painting and sculpture. Is there interaction between the artists and the other art community? And do you guys get involved with that? Are you in dialogue with, say, musicians and dramatists? And
Yeah, like not on a, you know, mostly visual artists, but like we both have, you know, we've both done things in like the music world, you know, on some level, like, and, you know, care about music again and know musicians. Mm-hmm. So, you know, but I don't think that there's like a, you know, a daily dialogue.
so there's not kind of collaborations going on like Cage and Larson used to do?
There should be more of that, but no, there are those collaborations happening. Not necessarily always for me or with me, but I have collaborated with musicians some on little mini projects, and you know, you played music or play music, and know lots of musicians, and have included some of those in your videos.
Yeah.
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 So yeah, that I guess the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
As a result of this, do you think you'll show together again?
No. No, I'm joking. Yeah, we still haven't even absorbed this fully.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that more importantly, what we've talked about though, like as much as showing is like, you know, collaborating. I think that that's something that like, you know, occurs, you know. So I think that could be the next incarnation of like this thing. You think?
Definitely.
Yeah.
It seems like kind of a marriage.
I think so. I think so. I mean, I think our process is so similar. The way we approach making art is so similar, and I think even like what you see on the walls looks very, I think I see there's a lot of connections, so definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's hard not to absorb, like, or to, like, sort of subconsciously take in, you know, stuff when you're, like, when you like it, and you care about it. Like, you know, I think about this with, like, a lot of my friends. Like, I'm always kind of, like, being affected by little things kind of seep into the process. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing, you know, ultimately. You know, like I tell my students, you're not going to, you know, because they'll say like, or like, you know, I don't really get on their case about like being inspired by work that's in the world, because I'm like, you're ultimately going to do that, the way that you're going to do it, Because believe it or not, we're all unique. Do you know what I mean? There is no, it's just a matter of like feeling a license to be engaged and go in, Sometimes I'll tell them, don't do that. No. But no, not often. Yes?
Yeah, formally speaking, can you guys just talk a little bit about how color affects what you do? Because not knowing what you guys do outside of this room, it's pretty obvious that we can see. I think you use simple but stunning or something, or simple but deep, talking about Chris's work. And Rico, on the other hand, uses a lot of very bright, very saturated colors. And it seems like it doesn't necessarily seem deliberate, but there's that contrast. And was that planned, or is that just how you guys work as separate artists?
I don't use color. That's it.
Yeah, you don't use.
No, that's it.
Yeah.
In the video, there might be some red accent on something, but yeah, it's always. I think it comes from I work with wood, starting off, and I think it was just like I love the muteness of that, and so I don't.
It's funny how we both still work with wood, like
Yeah.
all these years later. That's like the one
That
constant
was the core.
in the work. I mean, outside of the digital stuff. I mean, these are not canvases. They're just, in case you didn't know that. It's subtle. Yeah,
Color?
wood.
You.
Yeah.
I have no color. The color in your work. Or did you talk about it?
I just like, I love color. I don't know. Yes. And I love stripes. But like my studio right now is like completely. It's just it's crazy. It's like a carnival. It's like all hard-edged, abstraction. It's kind of crazy. It's like there's there's some black still. But, so I move around. I like move around. I'm not sure I'm answering your question. But I don't know. I mean, it kind of matters and it sort of doesn't. Do you know what I mean? Like I would like to, but look me up online and you'll see all the stuff. No videos though. So I'm hoarding the videos.
Do you each have a favorite piece of your own in this show? One that you like best at this particular time?
I've been into this lately,
And that looks like color to me.
That looks like color?
Yeah, it
Oh.
looks like pinkish peach.
Mm-hmm. That's the Luan board. There's a little red in there. But I think I'm still interested in the ideas happening with that.
Probably that, but only because I like the way that the background is painted. So it's all spray paint, and it took me a long time to get it to there. So I think that's my favorite. I mean, in the show. Yeah. My favorite of Chris's is everything, but I really like these two little pieces. The Elvis. That's Elvis.
Skinny.
Yeah. So I like those a lot. And this, like I said before. Yes.
So I guess I'm still thinking a bit about the fact that you guys are sculptors and all working on mainly two-dimensional stuff. And I talked to Chris a bit earlier about this, this massiveness of depth and narrativity and layering. And I just think it's a bit ironic that you're doing that in a two-dimensional space when you think that in a three-dimensional space you have more of a privilege to manipulate that.
Yeah.
So maybe can you guys just talk about the conceptual choice of, or the formal choice of saying, hey, we're going to talk about depth on a flat surface, rather than, even though that's been done obviously in history in a completely different way, but to do that in the way that you're doing it, rather than saying, hey, sculptures are about depth, let's do that. So
I would say that I think sculptors think about video and film differently than painters would or printmaker photographers would, and I think we think definitely about flat, two-dimensional. I mean, all my, the vortex work, it is more like this forced perspective space, but it's like really happening, right? It's not like painting it like an illusion, right? Where it's like, I don't know. Well, I think, I mean, versus like video and film, I think sculptors talk about like process of like something or cause and effect, or you can watch something happening. Right? And this is I saw it as like, because I take a black piece of Luan plywood. It starts off maybe as a black painting, and then I shoot it, and it turns into a sculptural object, because it's like this three-dimensional object, and then I scan it, and it turns into a photograph. So it's like this process of something happening to an object. Right?
Yeah, it's very layered, like the process. It starts in the physical world and ends up like a picture, so. That's a good question, by the way. Really good question. Yeah, I'm not sure I can answer. I mean, because it's all over the place. It's, I don't really, like I said, or attempted to say, I don't really distinguish between like, what's on the wall and what's on the floor, or what's even in the screen, like, and it's just like this. It's all kind of fused in my brain, so I like have to think about everything, or even like even like performance, which I used to do, but that's kind of a vague answer, but it's just all.
I would say you don't paint, you build. You're building up on the surface. It's very physical, right? Even though it's like that thin.
Yeah, I had a former student once say that, like, visiting my studio, that I was like, she's like, "You're not painting, you're like auto detailing."
Oh. It's funny.
I was like, "What? You're fired."
I think that's an interesting.
She's like, "You can't fire me because I don't work for you."
I think that's an interesting distinction, though, that Rico, that your work is constructed, it's built, and Chris's work, something has been happened to.
Yeah.
And even
That's
down
true.
there, it's dripped. Something
And
has
even
happened
that.
to the paint.
Yep.
Here, something's
Yeah.
happened to the image.
Yep. Actions.
Anyone else hasn't, any of the prospective students you want to? I don't mean to put you on the spot. Anything? Anyone? No? Any criticisms?
You're asking for your questions.
Think of it like this. We're here now for you, so feel free to, yes.
Do the words or the letters in the paintings with the words, do they like mean anything? Are they personal? Are they
Yeah.
like, what is it? Like, why are they included? I think that's my question.
Well, I mean, I guess again in the, sense of like sort of playing in the studio, like we're trying to like expand the dialogue, like I was interested in like trying to include language, I mean, there's a history of it in art. And so so yeah, there's very specific meaning, you know what I mean? I don't know that, again, that they necessarily work. Like that painting, it says Sam Cooke, and he was a famous pop singer, so it's kind of there and it kind of isn't there. So like I like that, again, like that, to play with like layering and language that way, like it's not always like direct, like I don't always think about like the language or like the work that's the most powerful to me is being like this really literal thing. So I like to try to generate some sort of tension, like things are there and not, like come forth and recede, and this piece, painting, is titled First Black President, And again, there was like something, not completely like, intentional about, like sometimes you start things, and you have a certain intent, and then like, you move from that and then these things become other things and so on. So at some point, like struggling with trying to make this for like a year, because I was like, what does that mean, first black president? Obviously it has something very specific, for me being like, a person of color, and, that's a significant moment regardless of politics and so on. But, at some point I was like, well, that may not mean anything after a while, you know what I mean? That, even though it does, so it's like, it's kind of like symbolic, but then I was like, I can just paint it out. It's still there and not there, and you can experience it, it's just like, bands of color, or you can like try to read into it. Again, I don't think it's like, this piece I really like, but I don't think it's like a really successful piece, like because I know all the problems inherent in it. And I think that that's another thing, it's like when you cook something, it like went into it, and sometimes you're like, concerned that, it's not going to taste good to people, and they're like, oh man, that's the greatest thing I ever tasted, or ate. So I'm not saying that about this, but but there's a lot in there. So like, but like, I like the option of like bringing things into the work, and and I may or may not keep them. I made a few word things. I don't know that I'm going to make another word painting. But, I like the option that if I decide to, I can. So, yeah.
So on the textures one, is that glitter that's painted over, or do you use other material?
It's glitter.
It's all glitter.
Yeah.
It looks like the stuff on, like when they have the stripes in the road.
Yeah,
when they apply it.
yeah, asphalt, like,
Yeah.
yeah. That's been said a lot. Yeah.
All the heavy black flake? Is it all heavy black flake?
All heavy black flake.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, those paintings are really fun to make because I just like lay out like a, paint. I like to say that I like to fumble through my materials. I lay the paint out, tape it off, and just dump glitter. Seems a little wasteful, but it's kind of fun just to dump glitter. Just like,
I always love dumping glitter.
Yeah. So and so yeah.
What do you adhere the glitter with?
Just use latex paint. Like I said, I'm not that, I'm joking when I say I'm not that smart about material, but sometimes I like to use what's there.
So what sticks, sticks, and what doesn't stick, doesn't stick?
Exactly. And then I spray paint it, I seal it, so there's actual steps, but I don't know if they're the right steps. Yes, sir.
I'm wondering about this piece. It seems less worked than a lot of the other pieces. Like I know this piece you said you painted the plywood and then it became a painting and then you shot it and then you scanned it and this piece looks less worked. Is there a reason behind that, or like what's the reason behind the piece, like overall? Like what's the concept behind it?
I don't know. There's a lot of, I've done about 20 of those. Some are like really tall, some are small. It's, I still don't know. It's like, it's a piece of wood that was something, it's been affected somehow, sort of like this thing. It's been affected by something. And it's a little bit unnatural how it's been affected, right? Because it's like right in the middle of that piece. And so, I don't know, that's a little bit of a question mark to me still. I wanted to put it in the show just to see what it looked like in the context of the work. But I think that's where my interest is in like this affected area of that wood. Like an action was done to it, as in that, or poured, or that was burnt and waxed. I think it's okay not to know, like to have some mystery in your work and like go, like even like this, I don't know where this is going. I've done about 50 of these and this is the only one that's worked out, right? And it's like, it's good not to know, but you trust that. And I think that where we're similar, you trust that. Like, I don't know where, and I don't know sometimes how to talk about it, but you trust that process that you've been doing for the last 25 years. but you still doubt, you know?
I got a question about this piece right here. She's curious why the last three strands are kind of going inward, because I think it kind of plays with her eyes a little bit. I'm curious as to whether that's like a conscious choice or it's something that just happens along the way. Are you very, like, when you work, are you very formalist about it? Just curious about how you go about it.
This one I probably got from, I've been taping off areas and then painting them and then pouring polyurethane over them as the white paint is still wet, and so it drags the paint down. And I didn't notice it, but it's probably just like, I don't use the tape measure, right? It's just more or less like sort of feeling out where those spaces are. And so,
Yeah, so it's just kind of built into the process.
it's in the process.
Yeah.
And it's gravity that does it.
It's gravity. Mm-hmm.
Was there maybe one more question?
Do you have friendships like this? Are you building them? Are you following anybody to another school?
No, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
Just remember, like, we're not going to be here forever. You're like, whatever.
Oh, we got a question back.
Oh, good. Yeah, that always works.
These back here, I was just wondering, is that Michael Jackson?
That is Michael Jackson. Yeah, it's funny. I like how you obscure it, and it's, you know, you kind of subconsciously know, but without knowing.
Well, Chris and Rico will still be here tonight for you to talk to, but make sure that you spend time in the gallery and pick up the titles too, because that will give you some access to some of the cultural content that's in the work as well. Thank you both for coming.